We're still journeying towards 2023, but this morning, let's have a conversation around leadership, governance, and accountability. Reverend Father George Husani joins us this morning. He is Executive Director at Luxterra Leadership Foundation. He joins us from our Abuja studio. Thanks so much for joining us this morning, Reverend. Let's begin by, maybe it's okay to begin by some definitions. Gratifyingly, you are with a leadership foundation. So if you cast your mind back, what kind of leadership structure would you say we have had over the years, which has worked for us, which has not worked for us? Any review in mind for you?
Thank you, Ayo. It's a pity.
I hear you.
It's a pity that after 22 years of a current democratic dispensation, we are now talking about leadership as from definition, from point of view of defining. What that shows is that we have not experienced any growth in our leadership evolution and governance evolution or democratic evolution, which is really a pity. Events of this country in the last few years, and particularly in the last few months, just make many of us very, very sad and begin to ask ourselves why we are doing all that we are doing. What prospects for this country? Many of us are so distressed today, so sad today to see what we are seeing all over the place. That what we have appears to be, in the words of President Obasanjo that we just heard, power grabbing rather than any enterprise in leadership. Leadership as service, leadership as concern and commitment to the common good. Leadership as sacrifice for the common good. That's not what we are seeing. What we are seeing is the dynamic between power and purpose. Those who superintend us, and a lot of those who aspire to superintend the Nigerian community society, have very little idea of what is the purpose of authority, of political power. So it is just about grabbing power, self-enrichment, and further impoverishment of the Nigerian people. We see ourselves going down, and we think we are hitting rock bottom, but the bottom in Nigeria seems to be endless. And yet,
Father, if you don't mind me asking,
aspiring to grab power.
My sincere apologies. Exactly what you just said now.
Power for what?
Just 1 second. You've talked about power grabbing quite a few times this, since you started speaking. But I'm wondering how that happens, because there is always an election that brings people into power. So how is it power grabbing if they are elected into office?
So-called. There is election, so-called. But what we see in this country is a far cry from proper democratic processes. We already see now in the primaries, party congresses, and the way leaders are emerging in party congresses. And you see that, people have come on TV and are crying and are saying, no, I want to contest. I want to contest. I don't want consensus. I don't agree about consensus. We are seeing people crying on TV and say, no, I want to contest. But we are told that, oh, no, these are consensus candidates. And this is not democracy. I think that the Nigerian people have been so impoverished, have been left so ignorant that it has become so easy to oppress us. It has become so easy to
Father,
treat us as if we are
just 1
slaves
second. On that same
again.
issue that we are talking about, I'm sorry to butt in once more. The general elections does not have provision for consensus. It is intra-party politics that has that element of consensus in it, not the general elections itself. Forgive me if it sounds like I'm, playing some devil's advocate here, but it's just to be clear on what the issues are, before us. We always have elections. Yes, there have been, progressive reduction in the number of people that come out to vote, but there is a semblance of voting one way or the other. So I just want clarity on exactly how it is power grabbing, and if it is not going the way it ought to be going, what is wrong and how do we deal with it?
It is clearly not going the way it's supposed to be going. We talk about leadership recruitment processes and party politics. The processes for candidates emerging in parties are very critical for the election, what the outcome of the elections. So if the processes that bring candidates up and prop individual candidates up for election, for the general elections, if those processes are flawed, if there are serious questions about those processes, then how can we say that the population we really have a choice? How can we say we have a choice? The idea is that Nigerians don't have a long history of good sacrificial leadership. From primitive feudalism, we ended up with long history of slave trade and slave owners. Then we ended up with colonialism and neo-colonialism. We have not practiced true sacrificial leadership where those who elect to, those who volunteer to lead us are people who are ready to sacrifice themselves for the good of the population. I mean, I say that the metaphor for the sick and unwholesome leadership system we practice is the sirens. When leaders are going to the airport or when leaders are going for an event and they are going with a long motorcade, and then you have bulala-wielding soldiers or policemen and gun-toting people chasing the people who elected them, chasing them off the road. That, for me, is a metaphor for what leadership is in Nigeria. And the fact that Nigerians continue to entertain that and accommodate it, the fact that Nigerians continue to accommodate a situation where those they elected into positions chase them off the road.
Right.
And if there is traffic jam, rather than see the leader coming out of his vehicle and see how he can help people, some of whom may be rushing to hospital, for the road to clear, no, they chase the people off the road so that they may have a clear pass. Now, that for me continues to be a metaphor for leadership as subjugation, leadership as the conquest of the people, leadership as exploitation of the people, rather than leadership as midwifing the society towards the society of our dream, where
right. So, Reverend Father,
that is why we keep going down and down.
Just
we
to
need
follow
to
up
reconceive leadership.
Right.
We need to.
So let me take it up on that point. Pardon me, Reverend Father. Just to take it up from there. So you said people grab power without knowing the purpose. You've talked about, this metaphor, power being to subjugate people. But what is the purpose of power? What should leadership look like?
It is the book of Proverbs, chapter 29, verse 2 says, "When the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. But when the wicked rule, the people groan. When the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. But when the wicked rule, the people groan." See what we are seeing, we are experiencing. We are groaning, we are crying, we are dying. That's not evidence of good leadership. Now, a good leadership entails that people sacrifice their comfort, sacrifice their conveniences, sacrifice their pleasures so that the people can have better life. Instead, what we have here is that people we are sacrificed. The generality of the people are sacrificed so that 1% of people who are leaders, so that they have pleasurable life life of comfort. Just the other day, last month, somebody in the parliament, in the National Assembly, was trying to say, look, let's make a law that if somebody is going to hold public office in Nigeria, that the children have to school here. In the context of endless ASU strike, in the context of endless challenges between government and ASU, say, so look, let us get those who are going to be in public office in Nigeria to have their children schooling here so that they can be concerned about teachers and about the quality of our education in this country. He was shouted down. Now, that tells you the caliber of persons that are running our affairs. Because I thought that that was one of the best proposals for a bill in this country that will ensure that education is of high quality. If the president's children, if the minister's children, if the governor's children, if the senator's children, if they are all schooling in this country, they would ensure that the schools are of high quality and that the teachers are well paid. But that attempt at a bill was shouted down. That, for me, is a clear evidence of the quality of people we have making laws for us, the quality of people we have superintending our affairs. And
okay,
I just feel sad that at 64, after over 30 years of engagement in this country, I just feel sad that nothing is happening in terms of positive change.
Well, perhaps a way to define what true leadership is to define what bad leadership is, which is, I think, part of the points you have made as well. But you talked about your age, which means you have lived through, all the successive governments in Nigeria since independence. And I'd like to know, I know my colleague touched on that earlier on about, and I think this was towards the democratic dispensation, but through it all, from independence, has there been any governance structure that Nigeria has had that you can say is a reference point, maybe close to what proper governance, a true leadership will be for you? Has there ever been any time that we're close to it? I think that's also important to raise.
Yes. In the First Republic, 1960 to 1964, and then 64 to the time of the first coup in 1966, we had a semblance of good governance. It was a parliamentary system. We didn't have an all-powerful presidential system that can literally do and undo. Then we had the 4 regions that were competing for development. The evidences are there. Opara was the premier of the Eastern region. He established the Enugu layout, that layout in Enugu, and we are told that he never had a plot of land there. Now, Tafawa Balewa, we are not told of any mansions he had anywhere. These are people who sacrificed themselves for the Nigerian society, and they lived modest lives. And then they competed between the northern region and the western region and the eastern region and later the Midwest region. They competed for development. From University of Ibadan in the western region, we now had the Ahmadu Bello University, we had the University of Nigeria, and they were competing. Later, Western region set up the Obafemi Awolowo University, and so on. They were competing for excellence. And at that time, there was very little difference between, say, the development in Nigeria and development in a place like Singapore. But look at us today. Singapore is 100 light years ahead of Nigeria.
So,
well, we had the unfortunate event of the military rule. And it is as if we have not survived. We have neither survived the ravages of the Civil War nor of the military rule, where some young officers came and shot their way into power, and power became the main factor. It was no longer about service. And then one coup after the other, and then we ended up with people who were close to the military taking over power even when democracy came. And so democracy did not evolve. If it had continued and we kept struggling from 1960 to now, perhaps it would have evolved to be proper democratic governance with a culture of leadership of service, a culture of leadership of commitment to the common good. I bet a lot of those who run our affairs have very little idea of what the common good is. The good of everyone, and not just the good of my family, myself, and my ethnic group or religious group, but the good of everyone. And if it is good for everyone, it will be good for, if it is good for the entire society, it will be good for everyone.
Yeah.
Right now, those who have been grabbing power and have continued to grab power, they cannot go home in peace. They are afraid to go to their villages.
Well,
what kind of authority is that you are afraid to go and greet your mother or your grandmother in the village?
The whole essence
is evidence of failure, complete failure of those who run our affairs.
Reverend, the essence of this conversation today is to try to proffer, options to the person who is watching us now, and perhaps also, percolate the same, information that you're giving out down to their influences so that we can have the kind of Nigeria that we all desire. And you have also referenced the point at which maybe we began to lose it. But one would just, perhaps speculate, if we had a template that worked, it should have been something that we can replicate at any given time. The First Republic you talked about was the first. We have had the Second Republic, we have had a Third Republic, and now we are in the Fourth Republic. Only the First Republic had the parliamentary system of government. Other republics have had the presidential system of government, and that's brought us to where we are today. Clearly, the leaders at the time thought there was something wrong with the parliamentary system. Consequently, we evolved into the presidential system that we have today. If that, I don't know, at what point do you think we got it wrong in using a template that works, as opposed to, what we had in the First Republic and now? Is it a problem of system of government, or what exactly do you think we got wrong in the process?
Well, it is the manner in which we operate the system. Perhaps in another clime, our presidential system would work better than this. I mean, we are copying America in the presidential system, but America does not operate the way we operate. So we are not even copying well. Now, the parliamentary system would have been cheaper. Today's presidential system is way too expensive for a country that is struggling. It's too expensive. And then the president is too powerful. We need to check that. In fact, people say, okay, we need to find out when the rain began to beat us. And for me, we need to return to 1966 and take it back to 1966. One, we are operating 774 local governments, 36 states. It's not sustainable. It is not sustainable. We are spending perhaps over 70–80% of our resources on overheads. This is not sustainable. So I am one of those who say, let's get back to where the rain began to beat us, and that's 1966, and that is the parliamentary system. Let's get back to a few regions, if not 4 regions, if not the 4 regions of 1966, not more than 6 or 7 regions. Now, so that we can pick it up from there, because actually I also agree to a reasonable extent with those who say that the 1999 Constitution was foisted on the Nigerian people, that we the people is a lie, that we need to come up with a constitution that we all can own. We need to come up with a grand norm for our nation that we all can say, yes, I contributed to that. I was consulted and I made my opinion known. So 1966 is for me the reference point to go back there, and then perhaps to parliamentary system, and then to perhaps 4, 5, 6 regions, or 7 at the most, then reduce this huge governmental structures like 774 local governments. They are not sustainable. How many states are viable in this country today?
So you have prescribed, as it were, Reverend Father.
Are viable?
So you have prescribed, we've identified sort of the challenges we have, and now we're prescribing the solutions, or the medication for all of this. But there's also the cycle, the 4-year cycle, which we have to go through statutorily, as it were. And we're nearing another one in 2023. And for a lot of people, I imagine they're not quite sure how to place those who are coming up. Is it the contenders? Some call them, some other people, pretenders and all of that. But for the Nigerian watching and is thinking, or he or she's thinking, what do I need to look out for in the next crop of leaders that we want to elect in the coming election cycle? What would you be telling them? What should we be looking out for?
Competence and credibility. I will first of all say credibility, and then competence. We have a lot of people who are running around whom we know have issues with EFCC, have issues with ICPC. They have been governors or they have been managers of government agencies, and they have cases to answer. So even if they have a lot of support from their area, but the generality of Nigerians can see that these people have cases to answer. None of such people should ever be brought forward. Nigerians should not entertain anyone because we have credible people in this country. From north to south and east and west, we have credible Nigerians, competent Nigerians. But those who have grabbed power all the while, are insisting on being there, even when they can see near total state failure under them. I mean, if you love the Nigerian people, if you have a semblance of compassion for the Nigerian people, and you see tens of thousands of Nigerian people dying, including security agents dying on a daily basis, at what level does it get? At what stage does it get before Nigerian leaders admit that I'm not succeeding? I think we are failing. I think other people should try. So the same characters that have led us along these alleys are the same ones that are desiring to occupy power in 2023. It is not good for the Nigerian society.
Well, Reverend, you have talked about the leaders that are putting themselves forward. But in leadership, you or those of you who are in the space will tell us that there is leadership and there is followership. And there are those who, as they say, according to a book by John Maxwell, lead from behind. That those who lead their leaders, So there are those who also question the followership as being culpable in the leadership process. Progressively, we have had a situation where the number of voters that come out to vote at whatever the election is have reduced gradually. So in that regard, what can we do to encourage leaders to make them know that not voting is voting, not being a part of the process is making them, the Nigerian people, even more vulnerable in the entire process?
Yeah, I think that many times we actually blame the victims. We keep blaming the victims in Nigeria. The poor Nigerian has been so oppressed, left ignorant, not well educated. I mean, the overwhelming majority of leaders in this country, go and find out, they hardly have WAEC certificate. The overwhelming majority of leaders in this country hardly finish secondary school. Check the 13 or 15 million voters that voted the last election and check whether how many of them finished secondary school. So we have left our people. Nigeria remains one of the countries with the highest number of uneducated, illiterate people. Now, this is what the politicians, the professional politicians, the prostitutes of power, this is what they are capitalizing on. So it pays our oppressors, our conquerors, it pays them to keep people ignorant, and as they keep them ignorant, they exploit them. Then we turn around to say, well, you get the kind of leadership you deserve. No, Nigerians don't deserve the kind of leadership we're having now at all levels. Nigerians deserve something better. It is true, those who refuse to vote, those who don't have their voter's card, you are right that they are somehow voting. But you see, you can interpret their voting in two ways. One is that if they have no confidence, if they are presented with 6 and half a dozen, if they are presented with what is 6 and half a dozen, meaning there's no difference in the candidates they are presented with, and they have no confidence in those people, will you blame them for not going to vote? For me, those who refuse to go and vote are making a statement. It may be a wrong approach, but they're actually making a statement. It's a statement of lack of confidence in the system. They have lost confidence, and many of them have lost hope. If you just go to the embassies and see the quality of Nigerians that are queuing up to get visas to go out of this country. Now, they are the caliber of Nigerians who hardly go to vote because they have lost confidence in the system. And see the ones that are voting. They are often the ones that have no choice, who cannot go anywhere, who cannot go to any embassy to get visa to go anywhere. This is unfortunate. Our best youths, our most qualified young people are leaving the country in droves. And then we have people who are sitting at various levels and say they are superintending us, that they are in authority. Can't you see that we are failing? Can't you see that, the people in authority don't like to hear about state failure. But what are we experiencing? If not state failure, when the non-state actors are proving to be more powerful than state actors. So for me, it is time for people, out of conscience, if you really have conscience as a human being and you have compassion for those who are dying every day, to come out and say, I think we have failed. Let some more competent people, some more credible people go there and rule us. And I will say, please, whether you are Muslim or Christian, reflect on that Proverbs chapter 29, verse 2. When the wicked rule, the people groan. When the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. If people are groaning, does it not mean that there is something wrong with leadership? If there's widespread groaning, death, blood all over the place, it means that there is something wrong with leadership. Let those who are in leadership go and reflect seriously on that verse and have compassion for the people. And let other people try to lead the Nigerian people, and let's see if Nigeria will not be better. This grabbing for power and going up and down, for the next 1 year, there will be no leadership, because they keep running up and down from one place to the other to seek the endorsement of people with money. And they are donating huge monies every day. But that's not what is going to help Nigeria. Perhaps the best Nigerian to lead Nigeria in 2023 has no money. Are we going to be able to allow such people to run our affairs? All I will tell the Nigerian people is that we need to be speaking, we need to be writing, we need to be making public protests to say, no, we deserve something better than this.
Well, let me take it up from there, Reverend Father.
Out of the country. We need to sit here and do something about this.
So as we wind down on this quite instructive conversation, I must say, I'll also want us to touch on the role of religion. We started this show by referencing something going on in the National Assembly, this plan, this bill to have the National Religious Harmony Commission, NRHC, and it's past second reading and all of that. We've been getting, in fact, comments on that one. But we can't deny the role that religion plays. Even in politics, it might be implicit sometimes, but it plays a huge role. So moving into the election year, what role do you think religious leaders, religious houses must play? Because we're all a part of this nation, what roles must they play in getting the right leadership for Nigeria?
Well, I believe that religious leaders and religion is the one to give direction to people when it comes to issues of conscience, when it comes to issues of truth, when it comes to issues of justice, when it comes to issues of kindness, compassion, fair play. Religion gives direction. Religion helps people build up their consciences. Therefore, religious leaders are to help the Nigerian people to see what the challenges are and educate the Nigerian people to work for, to promote competent and credible candidates to positions of authority, and to stop allowing themselves being used as tools to keep power grabbers in power. That Nigerian people should not continue to allow themselves to be used as tools to keep power grabbers in power. But instead, religious leaders, Christian and Muslims, should constantly educate their people on what good leadership is, on what the common good is, on what is service and self-sacrifice. And then go ahead to say, look, let us look for competent people. You people should look for competent people. It is not the role of the religious leader to tell the people who to vote for. It is the role of the religious leader to tell them what the challenges are and then educate them on what are the criteria, the indices for good leadership. So that when they see somebody that has those elements, then they say, this is the kind of human being that they are talking about. So let's go ahead and vote for the person. I have a bit of a problem with religious leaders telling their people who to vote for, because that can be very, very dangerous.
Well, it's understandable,
that should not be encouraged.
Okay. Well, Reverend, I mean, it's a fine place to anchor the conversation this morning, hoping that what you have said that religious leaders should be doing, they have already been doing. Otherwise, we should have better people and better results from the leaders that we have employed until now. But for now, we'll have to thank you very much for being a part of our conversation this morning. Reverend Father George Ahusani is Executive Director, Luxterra Leadership Foundation, joined us from our Abuja studio. Thank you so much once again, Reverend, for being a part of our conversation this morning. All right.
Thank you.
So Sunrise Daily continues right after now with another issue. Stay with us.